Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Advanced WordPress Theme Development. In the previous video, we learned about how to implement the Loadmore feature on a single post. And in this video, we're going to continue further where I will explain to you how you're going to use the JavaScript to make the Ajax request to load more posts on the single post page. Let's go on to the JavaScript. Inside of JavaScript, so we have a JavaScript file called Loadmore single.js. That's where the file is, and I've included that inside of the single.js, and I've also enqueued that. So if you go to class assets, is single, that's where I'm enqueuing this file, right? This one. Okay, that's how the single is included. I've created a class called Loadmore single constructor. I have already explained all of this in the previous video. Basically, getting the Ajax URL that is being passed from the localized script, which is here, and then getting the Ajax nonce again, that's being passed using the WP localized script. Inside of the object side config, you will have the access to the Ajax URL, which is the path up until the Ajax file of WordPress, and the nonce as well. So you'll have access to that. And then load more button is going to get hold of this particular button over here, which is this right here. Okay, that's the ID for the button, so it's going to get hold of that. The text element, single loading text, so that's your text, because we don't want to show this unless the query is being made. That's why you're getting hold of that. We check is request processing, because we don't want the user to keep clicking on the load more button while the previous request is being made, depending on how slow or fast your server is. Okay, so you don't want another request to go until the previous one is complete. Okay. So then inside of this, we're calling this init function. Inside of the init function, we check if the load more button exists. Otherwise, we just want to return. And then we check the total pages count. Again, that total pages count is going to be available or being passed from here. So remember, we discussed that you have the total pages, maximum pages, and that is being passed as data max pages from here. And if you check total data max pages over here, it's 20, so there are 20 pages available. So that's what we're getting the access from, load more button dot data max pages. So that's going to give us the value 20. Okay, and then when the load more button is clicked, you call the handle load more function. Inside of this function, you get access to the page number. So you can see that, yeah, you can see that data page equals 0 over here. So that's where it's going to get the page number from. Then you get the single post ID. So again, that's a single post ID. So we get hold of that. And then if the request is processing or page is not available, then just return null, else continue. Get the next page. The next page is going to be whatever the page value is plus 1. So we're incrementing the count by 1 every time. And then we also toggle the loading. So this function basically takes care of just setting the request processing to is loading, then hiding and showing that loading text, which is this one. Currently it's hidden, and notice that when you click on it, it goes block, and then again it gets hidden. So that function is basically toggling the loading state. So initially we set that to true. Then we make an Ajax request call. The Ajax URL is already available, being passed from here, and then type is post. Inside of the data, which is your payload, you have the page number, which we already got from top, this one. And then you have the single post ID. We already got that from here. Single post ID is 181. And then you pass the action. So the action name needs to be the same as what you have defined here. Single load more. Okay, so that's your action name. You have the Ajax nonce. Again, Ajax nonce is being passed from here as an object. And then on the success, you basically get the page number. You set the page number inside of this data. Okay, and then you also append the response. So notice that in the network tab, we are getting the response, which is basically this post, right? So what we're doing is that we're getting hold of this container, single post load more content, right? Single post load more content, and then appending the response every time we get it. Removing the load more button if on last page. So this job of this function is basically just to check if the next page plus 1 is greater than the total pages count. So let's say that you are on page 20 and the total pages count is also 20. So this becomes 20 plus 1. So is 21 greater than total pages count? Yes, it is. So go ahead and remove that load more button, because we don't want the load more button to be shown onto the front end in case if you're already on the last page. If you're on the 20th page and there are no more pages available, we don't want to show the button unnecessarily, making the user click on that and nothing happens, right? It doesn't make sense. And notice that I'm kind of breaking these small functionality into functions. So not only it helps you reuse them later on if you need to, but at the same time, it makes your code cleaner, right? Commenting them out, putting the name of the parameter, what it does, all of those things. It's just easy, you know. But take a look. I mean, if somebody is reading your code, they just have to remove load more if on last page. They don't even have to go to that particular function to see what's happening inside of it. It's self-explanatory, right? So that's how you should be programming, keeping things clean. Otherwise, imagine if I would have put all of those code over here, it would have been a mess for this function. And doing this, we are kind of hiding the complexity by just creating chunks of code and wrapping them inside a function. Okay, so just more readable for humans. Okay, so that's what it does. Then we toggle the loading using the toggle loading. And then if there's an error, you get the response. So that's what happens. And I've already given you the demo of how this whole thing is working. Notice that we have these posts right now. You hit that again. You can see that another post is being added over here, right? So that will keep on happening until we have finished all of the posts and see another request was made. Okay, page number 6. Okay, so I hope you did like the video. If you did, please give a thumbs up and do subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. Please do start my repository to support my work. My repository name is Aquila. And thanks to all the beautiful 440 people who have already started. And please do follow me on GitHub and Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is Codeytek. So I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.